Welcome! Reporting to you live from Zoom. You're listening to a podcast, Chais and Chisme, brought to you by the world of Feriela.
I'm Jennifer, aka Fed, reporting live from the Pink Palace.
And I'm Daniela, aka Ella, reporting to you live from the Sirena Oasis. Now, first elephant, there's two elephants in the room. First elephant in the room. Yes, we've been gone for a while. I know y'all have been waiting for the hair reveal, which is the second elephant in the room. Listen, there's a double hair reveal today, but also neither one of us are having a great hair day. Our hair has been like this for a little bit. So you know what? We do, but we didn't. Next week, we'll make sure our hair is popping. Yes, I got a split dye going on. We got the purple. We got the aqua teal green. We are now almost a month in from me having this. Y'all didn't get to see it. And I'll talk about why you guys didn't get to see this in a moment. And then, Abe, what's going on with your hair?
Okay, so mine it has not been a month for me. So this is actually a fresh hair reveal, but as life circumstances, we had a twin hair reveal, a double hair reveal here. So I know you guys can't tell, it's also the lighting and it's not a big one, it's not a split dye, but I have pink highlights in my hair. Yes, it is pink, they're just dark pink. I did this earlier this week. So we have also not styled the way I would like, but life circumstances. But yeah, I said next time y'all see us, we're gonna be all in our aesthetic. We're gonna commit if we have the energy for it, because as you'll find out in this podcast, it's a lot happening. So we'll get into that. But
just like very quickly, I want to give an immediate trigger warning. We're going to be talking about loss here and grief. So if that's something that you're sensitive to right now and you just can't hear about it, this is not going to be the podcast for you. There will not be a sock cam on this podcast. We're talking about a little bit more of a serious topic, but we do have the podcast from February, the Two Daniela Delights podcast right before my birthday. Oh, that's right. I'm 27 now, y'all. I'm 27. I turned 27. The whole hair and all that stuff. And my birthday was great. But that's not what we're here to talk about. So if you want something a little bit more upbeat, light, go check out our other podcasts. Otherwise, if you want to have a little bit more of a conversation about grief, expectations of grief, and what grief can look like, and being patient with yourself, that's what we're going to be talking about today. Because if it looks like I rolled out of bed, it's because I did. I have been putting this podcast off, and we haven't posted on WAF in about 2 weeks now. As for those of you who follow us on Instagram, you will know that the day that we were supposed to record the last podcast that was supposed to go out of Daniela's Delights was sorry, notification went off on my phone. ADHD. That morning I don't even know how to start this. I guess I'll just say that day that we were supposed to record, unfortunately, my uncle, who lived here in our house, passed away suddenly. And so we did do the following week because it felt like a good distraction, but that was just it. It was a distraction. The following week was my birthday. So that served as a really good distraction for me to stay preoccupied and not really deal. And then once the distraction of my birthday was gone, I couldn't front anymore. And we took a break because this is too much work for just one person. And I needed kind of time to heal, deal. And have I done that? I don't know. I've been doing some other healing, I suppose, but honestly, it still feels like it still feels surreal. This podcast is kind of the first time that I'm talking about it in a pretty long time. Today, the day that we recorded this on the 26th of February, marks 3 weeks since he's passed. At this point, 3 weeks ago, he had just passed, and we all got the news from the hospital. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about, I want to do this podcast in dedication to my tío Enrique, who's my dad's older brother. He died at the young age of 63, very, very young soul, always very active. um yeah, I want to dedicate this podcast to him. He was like a second father to me and my brothers. It was very, very special. He lived with me for 21 years. He was here 21 years of my life. Very hardworking, humble man. The heart and soul. Honestly, he was the heart and soul of my father's family, the Malke family. So today we're going to dedicate this episode to him. I'm going to talk about what happened and who he was a little bit. And then we're going to talk about grief and what that looks like. And so it's going to be mostly me talking, but when we get to the grief section, Bay is definitely going to be contributing and all of that stuff. Originally, I wanted to have this originally, the way that I envisioned this podcast is I wanted to do and maybe one day I will, but it's just not going to be today. I wanted to do this whole podcast where I talked about him, his story, who he was, the immigration system here in the United States and how it's flawed. And I thought that I was going to be in a place where I could plan that. But when I tell you today was the biggest proof that I've been avoiding this, I woke up on time to get ready and I wouldn't get out of bed because I knew the sooner I got out of bed, the sooner we were going to do this. And I have been avoiding all tasks related to the funeral for the last 2 weeks. After like my birthday passed and all of that stuff, I've been avoiding it because I knew that talking about it again meant that I was going to have to face it, deal with it, accept it. It made it real again. And for these last few weeks, I've been dealing, I'm depressed again, which makes me very angry and frustrated because, as you guys know, I was having a hard time in the fall. And when we took a break in December, I really, really felt grounded. I really, really felt like a lot better. I I've been depressed for so long. Like the first time that I really experienced depression and suicidal thoughts was when I was 15. And the way that I felt late December and all of January was this peace and happiness and balance. Of course, still dealing with stuff, but like just this groundedness, this centeredness that I hadn't felt since I was 14 years old. And that's a really fucking long time. I'm 27 now. And it was a very liberating feeling. So when my uncle passed 3 weeks ago, I felt this determination to not let myself fall. But I also knew that inevitably the loss of someone so close to me was going to make me feel really bad. But I was like determined. I was like, nope, no, I'm going to be okay. And the fact of the matter is, it still hasn't even hit me, but I am depressed. I am depressed because after my birthday passed, I had a really hard time, which we'll talk about. We'll talk about later. Whew. We we hopped on here and we didn't even jump full into the podcast. We literally sat here for like an hour and a half and just started like jumping back and forth, like being super ADHD and just talking about anything but starting this podcast. I had
Yes.
Yeah, as you guys know, I've been like mukbanging during these podcasts lately because your girl, like, I have to eat, right? And I'd never do before.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had a whole fucking plate of chilaquiles that I was gonna have here with you guys, but we talked for so long and talked about so many topics. I finished
Mm-hmm.
it. I'm also already halfway through my chai.
My goodness. Yeah, okay. I was careful to not sip on it because in my brain I was like, we're gonna start any minute now, any minute now, any minute. But I kept contributing to putting it off because as you'll hear, the grief portion of this is a grief. Um Grief is often something that it's still when you think about or it still comes out of nowhere. It's a sneaky thing. And for me, although, when we talk about, the grief portion, I'll talk about my experience with it. My experience is not as recent as, Daniela's, but damn, when I talk about it, it's as if I'm there.
Yeah.
And I put it off too. I was definitely out. We were out here doing the lightning round of topics of everything. And I mean lightning round because we had a little bit of time, like, but we were like out here just going off of different tangents and talking about everything but starting the podcast with the setup fully done. And that's something that's like, a human experience, like
I
human
think
it's
we covered
yeah.
like 8 topics.
Mm-hmm.
We did
We
so.
had stories.
I finished my water. I had a water bottle here and I was sipping on it because I was like, oh, you're going to need it, because I honestly, I don't know how I'm going to react. I have this thing with me where sometimes I get so depressed that I get numb.
Mm-hmm.
And these last few weeks has been a roller coaster of emotions, and I've
Mm-hmm.
definitely felt the numbness. That I don't know if you guys know that feeling. You get so sad to the point where you can't feel anything anymore. Like you feel like this empty vessel that is just kind of going with the flow, but you're so sad that you can't even get to the point of feeling. So somebody will say something that y'all know, because I cry in every podcast. I don't know if I will. I anticipate that I might. It makes sense that I would, considering how easily I cry at other topics. Y'all know. But when I get to the point of numb, sometimes we'll be talking about something that normally I would be in tears and I can't cry at all. Like I'm just like, and so again, I don't know how I'm going to feel. I don't know how this is going to go, but in preparation for that. Oh, I'm also sorry, guys. You guys never saw our birthday or Valentine's Day set. If it makes you guys feel any better,
Yeah.
there's a happy birthday thing on the side. If you want to see what that looks like, go check out our Instagram on WAF. I did post on my birthday a cute picture of like my fucking outfit. That shit was fucking cute. I did actually, despite all of this, I did have a good birthday. It was a low key birthday, but I had a very good birthday. And it was a really positive. It was a distraction, and it's what I needed. It's what I needed. My birthday was a great day. I really wish that he was there, but um he he sent me some surprise gifts of life, and I knew they were him, so that was nice. Why are you delaying the start of this? I feel like I was going to say something else. Oh. So, in order to prepare, I got a few things for my emotionalness. First off, I'm wearing this blanket. I don't know if you guys have seen those blankets that are like for like watching TV.
Mm-hmm.
That they're like mermaid tails, and you stick your body inside of them, and it's also a blanket. And so I have one of those. I can't remember who the fuck got this for me, but whoever the fuck did, I'm pretty sure I said thank you, but like, oh my god, thank you, because I am a mermaid. I am a mermaid.
It's
And then
on theme.
on theme with that mermaid theme. Our best friend Adriana gave me this for, I think it was for Christmas last year, and it's this beautiful mermaid plushie that I like to hold when I cry. When I cry, you best believe my face is all up in here. Yeah. I don't have any makeup on in case I cry, except for gloss, because like my lips were looking kind of crusty. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I did not do my hair. I literally rolled out of bed, threw on this Peruvian pullover, and set up the lights, grabbed my food, and I was like, I'm not doing my makeup because I don't fucking want to. I am thankfully having a good skin day. And then also, oh well, okay. I also decided to grab this. This is a Peruvian cholita.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, she's got the braids, and she's got like the traditional clothes and the chanclas.
She's
Well,
so cute.
they wouldn't be called chanclas in Peru. I forget what they're called in Peru. But
Mm-hmm.
anywho, yeah, she's sitting there. And so I decided to bring her. She has my grandma's energy, and my Tio Enrique and my grandma were very close. So I felt like I needed a little bit of my grandma. Um, and then I brought someone who has been with me since I was 1 year old. I have to apologize to this someone because when I was a dumbass and decided to go get married, I left him behind. And when I got divorced, big apology. I sang to him. I told him never again. If I get married again, you coming with me, boo. And that would be Elmo. That would be Elmo. I've had this Elmo for 20. He just turned 26, so he's a year younger than me. This is my Elmo. Elmo's been there through the hard times. Elmo's been there with me through everything. His eyes are faded, but don't make fun of him that he's got bad eyesight. That's why I'm here for him, and he's here for me. So,
He's
without
got
further,
cataracts now.
oh no!
Almost aging.
Ow! Oh my god, my side. Okay, guys, one quick tangent before I get started on this because as you guys can see, I'm still avoiding it. Um, earlier this week, I have a Snapchat. It's personal and private, so don't ask me to add me on Snapchat. It's not public. Anywho, on my Snapchat, I decided to dance like a show people how I show my friends how I truly dance, and some of them know and some of them don't know. But like
Mhm.
I'm a professional dancer, so I'm a really great dancer, but I'm also the worst dancer you've ever met. And I was busting out them dorky dance moves. And I even did that one where you put one hand on your head and you hold your knee and you like do that pump thing.
Mhm.
Anywho, I didn't stretch before and I'm kind of old now. So I hurt my hip, but more than anything, I got ida in my stomach, in my side. I don't know how to explain that
I
in
don't know either.
English. Air. It feels like a pocket
Google.
of air,
Yeah.
like a big bubble of air, and it hurts. It hurts because it feels like it's pressing on everything. And although it feels a lot better, it still kind of hurts. So when I was laughing right now, that's why I was like, "Ow!" Okay. Without further
Okay,
ado,
I'm gonna fidget into my cross-leg position because this is how I feel comfortable. We're talking about comfort here. So that's what I'm doing. Just ignore me.
okay,
I'm also under a blanket. Okay.
okay,
All right, I'm all set. We got into our spaceship and now let's travel to the emotions.
okay. I kind of want to talk about what happened, um,
Hmm.
and kind of what was going on that day. I did ask my dad for permission to talk about this. I did not
Hmm.
want to talk about all of this if the family was not okay with it. My dad gave permission, so I'm doing this.
Hmm.
um so my uncle, right? It was really sudden. It was really sudden. Leading up to his death, he wasn't feeling well. Um, but he's always been in really great health condition. He is a mechanic, and he wasn't feeling well, but it wasn't a deadly alarming way. I don't know if that makes sense. He like was having a little bit of a stomach issue, but he thought that it was like a food poisoning thing, like something he ate just like didn't sit well, as we all do. um and then um proceeded to his throat was hurting, um and he was having trouble swallowing, which we were just like, okay. And so my dad was helping out by like getting him soups, getting him food that he could digest. He wasn't really presenting COVID symptoms per se, so we didn't think it was COVID. But he wanted to just check the boxes off, and he went to go get tested the first week of February, and so he lives in the back of our home. There's like an extra room separated from the house, like a bathroom and everything, and he lived in there. And so we were quarantining from him until he got those results. Um, and I know that before he got tested, my mom and my brother had seen him. Like I had seen him a few times too before, like just, I think just a week before or 2 weeks before he passed, we'd all had ceviche together in the kitchen, I remember, and we were like cracking jokes. And he always thought I was pretty funny. My brother always says that I'm not funny at all, but he would always laugh at my dumbass things that I would do or say.
Hmm.
It was like we had an understanding of like, I know that you're funny. Um,
Hmm.
and so that day was great as per usual. He put way too much rocoto on his rocoto is un ají de Peru, a pepper. Is a pepper. It's very spicy. It's very, very spicy. He always puts too
Hmm.
much in his food, and then he starts sweating bullets from his head, and it's hilarious because the man is crying and sweating. He's like, "Está caliente." Um, but yeah, no. So he seemed fine that day. He seemed fine. But I remember that my mom and my brother had said that they had seen him closer too, like just, on his way back from work going to his room one evening or afternoon.
Hmm.
And they said he seemed very skinny, like he had lost a lot of weight. And I
Hmm.
thought that that was an exaggeration. Like I didn't know how much of that, because I hadn't seen him and I was like, I feel like I would have noticed that.
Mhm.
Anywho, he had lost a lot of weight. So when he was getting tested, I remember my mom, my brother, me and my dad talking about it. And he was having trouble swallowing. He couldn't really eat anymore. And this was
Mhm.
all in 1 week. This is just 1 week. This the days leading up, not even the week, the days leading up, things started to get kind of
Mhm.
um worrisome health wise. Again, we didn't think he was going to die. We just thought, okay, there's something going on with his health. And so we were all sitting there. I remember talking in the kitchen going, I don't think it's COVID. I really don't think it's COVID, but like something's going on. It's not nothing. I remember we all sat there and we were like, it's not COVID, but he's definitely got something going on. And at least now he's got his foot in the door with the doctor and we can figure out what the hell's going on because my mom was like, he lost a lot of weight. Lost a lot of weight. That's not normal. And he was having trouble pasando, eating food, solid
Mhm.
foods. Um, and we're like, that sucks. And I was like, I've been there. I was like, a year ago in December, I had a sore throat so bad I couldn't eat anything. And I remember I was so hungry and like I could only have like soups and things like that. And I think that pain in my throat lasted for like a week roughly. So
Mhm.
again, we didn't think too intensely about it. But the fact that he was like losing weight even before that was like concerning, right? We're like, something's going on. He's having some kind of a health issue. Um, February 5th rolls around. Actually, I'll start with February 4th. It's a Thursday, and I remember feeling this itch to get out of the house. So I went to go run errands. I think I was somewhat emotional that day, and I was like, let me just retail therapy. I go to the
Mhm.
store, I run some errands, I bought these really cute sweats at Target. I like to call it Target, and this like really
Mhm.
cute white crop top that reminded me of this like early 2000 style crop top that I had when I was a kid. And I think I even like what else did I get? Oh, I had bought a speaker. No, I ordered a speaker. Had I already ordered it? Had it already come in? Something. Anywho, I went and I walked there because I don't live too far from the shopping plaza. Like it's what
Mhm.
like to get to the shopping plaza is 15 minutes, and then the shopping plaza walking is like a 15-minute span. So
Mhm.
I walk there whenever I want to go because I like to walk. It gives me time to decompress. And I remember on my way back looking at the trees, and I love looking at the trees and their flowers, and then just feeling this like intense sadness that I could not shake. And I was like, why are you sad? Why are you sad? What's going on? I think I had bought like, oh, I bought like the birthday decorations for my room because I wanted to like, decorate for my room because my birthday was coming up in a week and I wanted to have my outfit and all of this stuff and like I did what I had to do. I think earlier that week I'd even gone to the store and bought my outfit for my birthday. Or maybe it was after. I can't fully remember, doesn't matter. Oh, it was after. But I remember feeling this intense sadness. I was like, "Why are you sad? Like what's going on?" You're like it was weird because I hadn't been sad in a while, right? But I just
Mhm.
felt this intense sadness. And I was trying to figure out why. And I remember as I was walking, I was like, maybe you're sad about your birthday because as you guys saw from the last podcast, I love my birthday. I'm a really big birthday person. I like over
Mhm.
celebrate. I celebrate all month. It's not birthday, it's birth week, birth month, party, party,
Mhm.
party, party. Like I celebrate with my friends, my cousins, my dance family, like everybody. I go all out. I overdo it maybe. A lot of Aquariuses we do, but it doesn't matter. It's like it's okay, right? I think it's okay to want to celebrate. And so this is the first year that I wasn't going to really be able to do that um, and wanting to do that because there was a year when my grandma passed away 4 years ago that I didn't want to do that because she was in the hospital and it felt bad to celebrate my
Mhm.
birthday. I remember, um, and then part of me just was like, maybe that's it. Maybe you're sad because it's starting to hit you that you're not going to really be able to do your birthday the way that you normally would like to do it, and you're sad about it. And I was like, but it's okay. I remember coming to that conclusion, but it not making sense because the way I was feeling was too intense for that. Considering all of the healing I had been doing in the last year, considering how balanced I'd been feeling lately, considering all the things that I'd come to terms with, it just didn't como que no cuadraba. It didn't really fully
Mhm.
make sense. But I was like, okay, maybe this is just like residual feelings from how you would have felt a few years ago. So I remember getting home and even expressing it to my mom, and I could not shake it all night. I remember being like, God, what is this feeling? Like, damn, dude, like, get over it. You're going to celebrate your birthday and it's going to be okay. Like, it's fine.
Mhm.
So that was the night of the 4th. And me and my mom always say when someone's gonna go that's close to you, it's like your body knows before you know. And now in
Mhm.
retrospect, I'm like, nah, my body knew. My body knew he was going, and that's why I was sad. Because I remember when my mom's mom died, which we're coming up on 10 years this year, before we
Mhm.
got the news that she died, I woke up in the middle of the night with this like very intense sadness. And then the phone rang. And, it's like my body knew. I don't know. I don't know how to explain that. If you've experienced that, you understand what I'm saying.
Mhm.
Um, So then that morning comes, and I remember my mom, as per usual, wakes me up, but this time it was different. She, I think I was just on the phone with you before that, or maybe I had been messaging you. I know that I always
Mhm.
message you first thing in the morning. I wake up,
Yeah.
I roll over, I message Bay.
Mhm.
So I may have already messaged you because I think that I was already kind of up.
Yeah.
And
We had been talking, I believe, because
yeah,
we were filming that day. Mhm.
yeah. And I think I was about to get up to get ready, and then my mom
Mhm.
goes, um, Danny, get up. Your dad found your uncle passed out on the floor in his room. And I was like, what? And she was like, yeah, he went to go take him because my dad, again, since my uncle was quarantining, my dad was taking him his food to his room, dropping it off and going. And my mom said, yeah, she went to go take him his food. Y no contestaba. He wasn't answering the door. So my dad got concerned and opened the door and found him passed out on the floor. Get up. And so she says the ambulances are come, get up and grab your mask, and ambulance is on their way. And I'm just like in shock because I'm like, what? Like I felt like I was dreaming. And I remember, I think I either texted or called you immediately.
Mhm.
And I was like, hey, can we postpone the podcast to another day? This is happening. I need to be here. And you were just like immediately like, no, dude, of course. I think do what you gotta
Yeah.
do. I'm so sorry. I'm keeping you guys in our thoughts and prayers and whatever. And I texted a few other people that I'm like really close to. Um, and so I get up, and it all happened really fast. I just remember, I remember that I think I got on the phone with you, or this was an audio. And I remember you telling me, don't go look at the body. It's honestly, it's like a really traumatic thing. Like, I wish that I had it in the times that I had. Like, don't do it. Like, it's going to be too hard. And there was this loud voice feeling inside of me that was like, I know this is going to be hard, but this is the last time that you're going to see him. Go look. And I didn't want to believe it. I wanted to believe that it was like my paranoia, but inside of me was like, this is the last time you see your uncle. Go look. And so I was like, I don't know if there's any truth in this. Maybe you're just scared, but fuck it. I'm going to go look, because what if it is? Like, what if it
Mhm.
is? And so I go outside, I have a mask on, and the dogs come running to me immediately. My dad locks them up on the side that's by the pool table, separated. They're like trying to make way for the ambulance, and I can't do it. Like, I start walking towards, and oh no, I remember the reason why I can't. I think it was like a respect for his body and like decency. Like, it was the middle of the night. He
Mhm.
wasn't fully clothed, and so I
Mhm.
was just like, oh, I don't know that I want to. I don't know that I feel comfortable with that, right? But I didn't know
Mhm.
what the degree of that was, so I was like, okay, maybe not. Um, and then I remember that I think a few nights before it had been very, very windy, and something from our tool shed fell onto the ground, like flew off of the tool shed and fell on the ground, and it was obstructing the way. So I went to go move that out of the way. I got into, I got into go mode. I don't know where my brothers went. I know one of my brothers was not home, and I know that the other one was in his room, but I got into, I'm the eldest, older sister mode. I'm a full adult, and
Mhm.
I like started helping out, and I was just like, this is my dad's brother. He just saw his brother passed out on the ground. I need to be the strong one. Like, my brain just went, you're the strong one. You need to be strong. And so I did. I fucking put my big boy pants on, and I moved that thing like That shit is heavy, but I was just in such go mode that I put my hands against the retaining wall and I put my leg on it's those, those like caravan vessel things that go on top of vans to put like
Oh yeah, yeah.
maletas, like suitcases that you
Hmm.
put on top. It's for traveling. It's one of those,
Hmm.
and that shit's heavy. And so I kicked that shit out of the way. I like was like, my mom wanted to help. I was like, I got it with one foot. Boom, that shit went flying. And I go to the dogs and I try to calm them down. I hear the ambulance arrive. Um, we still didn't know the results of his test just yet. So that's why we all had like masks on and things like that. And then also, just precaution. And then they start wheeling him out. And I'm afraid to look, but I look anyway. They had his lower half covered. And a trigger warning. I remember that when I looked at him, I will never forget it. His skin was graying. It seemed like a grayish tone to it. He had lost a lot of weight. Um, he looked dead. He looked dead. They said that he was breathing, but he looked dead. He looked like he was already dead. Um, and that shit was hard to see. And I just went to the dogs. One thing that made me really angry, but I'm going to say it anyway. Listen, I understand that, first off, mad respect this year, last year, to anyone working in the medical industry. Like, y'all are heroes. Um, I understand that y'all tend to see death and tragedy very often. I also understand that you have to have like a strong stomach and all that kind of stuff for that. And that it's not for everyone, and that you kind of, I'm aware because I've had friends who work in this industry, that you kind of have to separate, and that you can't get too invested because otherwise you're just going to be sad all of the time. But the amount of fucking disrespect from the paramedic, I wanted to jump across the pool and punch him in the face. So they wheeled him past the pool. I think maybe they thought I couldn't hear, but I wasn't right there. I was right there. I was maybe 50 feet away max. I hear the paramedic and I turn to look, and I catch the proof. But the paramedic goes, "Oh, but do you think he wants to go for a swim?" And then points at him, at my uncle, and kind of laughs it off to the other paramedic. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Are you like, listen, if you're going to make jokes, don't do it around the family. Like, that's so disrespectful. Like, my
That's hella
uncle,
disrespectful.
it is, dude. Like, I understand that you have to separate, but like, that's extremely insensitive to the situation that's happening, to something that's very real. You're making a joke about my uncle who's passed out unconscious if he wants to go for a fucking swim. I was so angry. I'm bitches lucky that I was trying to stay in go mode, because I wanted to leap across the pool and punch him in the face and be like, what the fuck is your
That
problem?
is beyond unprofessional and beyond insensitive. I understand separating as well, but I will go on here and say that that is not okay to say. There was no reason to say that out loud. There was no reason to say to that is there's a line between separating or needing to, kind of distance yourself from the situation, and there's a line of just being straight up disrespectful, and that's straight up disrespectful.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that happened. He gets in the ambulance. He goes. And that's when the phone calls start. That's when the go modes start. That's when my big boy pants stayed on for all of maybe a week. Um, uh, it's kind of a blur, but I know that as it started, my dad and my mom are in his room trying to find his Kaiser card information. He's being transported to the closest Kaiser emergency room.
Mm-hmm.
And and I am the one to inform my relatives um, that something has happened. So I start the phone calls. I called two of my cousins and I let them know, hey, I got some pretty intense news. We don't know what's going on, but we don't know what's going on yet, but whatchamacallit, um we found him passed out. They took him to an ambulance. We don't have any answers yet. I just want you to be aware, right? So I'm calling, right? And in that time, I believe my dad was able to find his phone and found the voicemail where, while this was all happening, his COVID results came back. They came back negative. It wasn't COVID. It wasn't COVID. And so, that's the little piece of information we have, is that we're like, well, he doesn't have COVID. What the fuck is going
Mhm.
on? So at this point, we're still thinking, okay, nos salvamos, nos COVID. This is still concerning, but we're just thinking he's going to get to the hospital. They're going to take care of him. And we're going to find out what happens next. We're all in this mindset of this household is about to shift, and he's going to need our help. And something's going on with him, and we're all in this mindset. You could tell, like, no one's necessarily saying it per se, but we're all in this mindset, like, all right, here we go again. There's going to be a shift of somebody's health is not doing well, and we're all going to have to adjust. And there's this willingness, right? And
Mhm.
I think before I get to the last phone call, I had asked my parents, like, where are my brothers? Like, do they know?
Mhm.
And my mom was like, I don't know where Gianluca is. He's not home. And I was like, what about Marco? Did somebody tell Marco? And they were so rushed with everything. They had only told me.
Mhm.
And so I was like, don't worry about it. I'll go. And I go upstairs and I tell my brother what I know so far. I'm like, get up, like this and that. And I didn't want to alarm Gianluca because Gianluca has asthma. And
Uh-huh.
we always have the fear that with the bad news, he'll have like an asthma attack. So we don't tend to like text him bad news. We tend to like tell him more. We would prefer to tell him in person, so that way, in case anything happens, which it's been a very long time, but that's always a concern. So
Mhm.
so I just text him and I'm like, hey, there's a family emergency in the house. Please come home. Not COVID related, but you need to come home right now. Right. Because I called him, he didn't answer.
Mhm.
So he's rushing home. He gets home. He gets up to date, and we're all just like, what the hell? Um, I make the last phone call at the time to my dad's younger brother, who also lives here. His wife answers, they're driving.
Mhm.
My mom had just gone upstairs. My brother is pacing in the kitchen. And I'm like, I just got some heavy news to tell you guys. We don't have much other information. I'm updating them. As they're asking me, well, when will you know? I see my mom rush down the staircase, crying and frantic, because we're waiting on a call from the hospital. I had just gotten off the phone with the hospital, I should mention. My mom called, I called. What update? What update? What update? Do we know if can we confirm? Like, because we got nervous about that voicemail. We're like, what if that voicemail's old? Because it's
Mhm.
not the first time that someone in the house has been tested because
Mhm.
of work exposure or something,
Mhm.
which all the times had been negative. But anywho, so we were confirming, and I had just gotten off the phone with them right before I called my uncle, and they were like, we will call you when we know something. I call my uncle. My mom's rushing down the stairs in tears, and I'm like, hold on. And I see my mom, and she's crying, and I feel like I already know, but I don't want to jump to conclusions. And she's on the
Mhm.
staircase, and for those of you listening, she's making that motion across her neck, like when you off someone or when you're like cut it out. She's doing that. And I'm not sure if she's telling me to get off the phone or if she's saying he's died. But she's just doing this motion really frantically and crying. She can't speak. My mom kind of does that when she gets into this, as many people do when they get into this mode. And
Mhm.
um, I'm like, what are you saying? And she just keeps doing this. I'm like, is he dead? And she goes, and she like nods and she goes, se nos fue, which means he's gone. And I'm in the middle of the phone call with his younger brother. So I'm the person to tell them. And I'm just like, I'm so sorry. My mom just came down on the phone. The hospital called. I'm really, really sorry. He died. He's gone. Like, I'm so sorry. I don't have any other information. And they're like, what? And I'm like, I literally just found out right now. I don't know what's going on. I need to get off the phone. I need to go find out what's going on. I'm so sorry. I get off the phone. I see my brother in the kitchen essentially collapse and start crying because, again, like, Chaco was a really big part of like me and Gianluca's lives. Like, and he's
Mhm.
been like there the entire life of Marco. But like when we were little, my dad's family started coming little by little, emigrating to the United States. My dad helped them all come, have a home where to be. And when he came, I was
Mhm.
like 6 years old, so we're 21 years of him being
Mhm.
here. Um, and and all of a sudden he's dead. Like he was just alive. We didn't see it coming. He wasn't like sick for a long time or anything. We didn't even know he was sick. We just thought something was up. He wasn't feeling well, but it didn't seem like anything like really far fetched.
Mhm.
As I see my brother collapse and I like hug him and he like cries into my arms and I like tear up as well and cry. And then we go upstairs and I'm like, you have to be strong. Like as I'm going upstairs, I'm like, I know my dad is finding out this information right now because my dad was in the shower when this call came in because he was going to go to the hospital. Even if he couldn't be inside, he just wanted to be nearby, so he was going to go to the hospital.
Uh-huh.
So he got in the shower, and that's when the call came in. We go upstairs. My little brother found out. My dad found out, and my dad sits on his the bench in front of his bed and just starts
Mhm.
crying, and we all hug him, and we're all crying, and everybody, it's just this moment of like disbelief and absolute heartbreak, like absolute heartbreak. Like he was just here this morning, he's lived with us, and out of nowhere he's gone, and he's never coming back, and we didn't expect it. Like we expected anything but that. For real, like when I tell you that that was like not even a possibility in my head was not like he's gonna die today or he could die. I did not fear that at all. Like I knew he was passed out, but I just thought lo van a resucitar. Like he'll come back to, they'll get him on a machine or something. They'll figure out what's going on, why he passed out. Um, and I remember this whole time I was sending play by plays to someone who's very special to me, near and dear to me. Um, so when they got off work, they got the whole play by play of like every emotion that I was feeling. And yeah, then it turned into, we cried for a while and it turned into a series of phone calls. I think the first phone call being that I needed to call back my cousins and tell them the update. So that was hard. I remember I called my cousin Alex first. He didn't answer. So I called my cousin Ricky. And these are the cousins that live here because half of my dad's family is in, more than half of my dad's family is in Peru. And then part of them are here
Mhm.
now. My dad was the first like super established person to stay here and build his family here. Nobody else has
Mhm.
built their family here, but some of them have brought their families here. My cousins are here. A few of my cousins. I'm on the younger end of the cousins. There's not a lot of us, but that's neither here nor there. This is me stalling emotions. So I call Ricky and I'm like, I have some bad news. I'm so sorry. Like, I don't know how to tell you this. I just found out. And so I tell him, and then I'm like, I need a call. I'm like, oh, Alex is calling me back. I'm like, I don't know how to tell you this. Like, these are cousins. I'm very close to my cousins on my dad's, especially these two. And I tell him, and he starts crying. I'm like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. It was really hard to do, to have to tell people. I've
Mhm.
never been the one to deliver news of death. I
Mhm.
felt like the strongest person in the world that day. I did. I really did. I didn't cry that much. I did cry, but in private, not with anybody.
Mhm.
In the face of my parents, I felt like I had my shit together. And for the next few
Mhm.
days, I felt focused and I felt like I had to be this person who was strong because my dad was going to fall apart. And my mom's normally a very anxious person. My brothers, their world is rocked again, very, very rocked. And I'm rocked too, but I'm the oldest daughter. I'm the oldest daughter. I'm 27 years old. I'm a full ass woman. And I remember going upstairs and telling my dad, how can I help? I want to help. You need help. Let me help. And he like kind of shakes his head. And I'm like, Dad, I'm 27 years old. I'm a grown woman. It's time that I pull my weight, right? I'm like, so how can I help? And I did. I did do a lot of help. And then the hardest part, which my deepest condolences to his son and his wife.
Mhm.
He was like a father to me as well. So I can feel
Mhm.
some pain, but I will never understand the pain that they are feeling right now. And
Mhm.
we, I sat next to my dad as he hops on uh, a call, a video call with his son. His son already knew what was going on. You know, my dad obviously told him first, so they were
Mhm.
aware and that we were going to keep them updated. He hops on a call, and his son is a year younger than me.
Mhm.
So when he left um, Peru to immigrate here, his son
Mhm.
was like 4 or 5, and he's never been able to go back. Um, he he was never able to go back. He didn't see his son
Mhm.
grow up. He was the breadwinner. He supported his family in Peru. He worked his ass off here. He was very, very hardworking.
Mhm.
Um, so we hop on a call and I see my cousin Axel. And my dad goes, Tienes que ser fuerte. You have to be strong. I got some bad news, essentially. So my cousin hears this and he goes, Espérate un momento, tío. Give me a minute. And he tells his mom, who I guess is somewhere in the room, go to the other room. And she's like, what? Why? No, I want to be here. And he's like, no, mom, I know how you get. Go in the other room. I will tell you. I will tell you what's happening. So he makes her leave the room, you know? And
Mhm.
I can tell that when he says this, he has no idea what we're going to say, which doesn't shock me because we had no idea that was going to happen. It
Mhm.
was like the farthest thing from our minds. And I could tell that he is in that same mindset. I'm like, oh God, this is going to hit really hard. And so he sits and he goes, okay, Theo, what's going on? And my dad tells him, and he loses it. He loses it, as anybody would, as anybody would. And he drops the phone and he starts panting and like crying and screaming, which completely like justified and everything. He just lost his father, who he hasn't
Mhm.
seen since he was like, and that's the shit that breaks my heart. He just lost his
Mhm.
father, who he hasn't been able to physically see since he was 5 years old because the fucking American immigration system is fucked, is totally fucked. And he didn't have that opportunity. And um and his son didn't have the opportunity to come and see him either. And his mom comes into my tia comes into the room and is like, what's going on? And my dad tells her. And you know, she's obviously emotional. She's got it a little bit more together though. Um and then everything starts. And then it's a whirlwind of what needs to get done. Conversations with my family was in such disbelief that I actually called the hospital to confirm that he was dead and that they didn't make a mistake and call the wrong family and that we didn't just tell a bunch of people a lie. Like that's how in disbelief we were.
Aw.
And they were, because I knew that that wasn't a mistake. I'm like, that's too heavy a mistake to make. It's not a mistake. But they were hoping that
Yeah.
call and that they'd be like, so sorry, we called the wrong number. But I knew that,
Denial.
yep, yeah. And so I call. They transfer me over to the emergency room doctor who pronounced him dead. She told me, and I was like, all right, where do we go from here? So I started taking notes, started making calls. Um,
Mhm.
and then we just started splitting tasks. My cousin calls. It's me and my dad doing a lot of things, and my mom just making sure that we eat. So I should tell you that, yeah, it got pretty late. We hadn't eaten yet. We weren't hungry. We were not hungry. So my mom was just like, eat, drink water. Um, my brothers were just kind of dealing, I suppose. Um,
Mhm.
I can't remember where they were at this time, but I stayed by my dad's side, and we started looking into funeral arrangements. Being that it's COVID, obviously nobody could go to the hospital. Obviously that meant funeral arrangements. We had to figure out what that was going to look like. Is he going to be buried here? Is he going to be buried in Peru? What kind of travel visas do we need to get? The complication of in Peru, um, viewings or velorios weren't
Mhm.
permitted because the pandemic is really bad at the capital, and
Mhm.
that's where they live in Lima. It's really, really bad. It's really, really
Mhm.
bad. Like we've had deaths in the family due to COVID um over there. And um so so then, okay, are we going to have the velorio here and the burial there? Are they both going to be here? And for a while it was looking like the velorio was going to be here and the burial was going to be there. And then my cousin decided that it was just too complicated and to make it all here. That's the fucked thing about the immigration system. Like, if someone dies here and you have family in somewhere in Latin America, you can't just come here for the funeral. There is this long ass process and approval, and you might still not be able to come. Um, and so there's all of this stuff that you have to get done, emergency humanitarian visas. And so it's like, where are we going to get them from? How many letters? The letters, humanitarian letters for the visa.
Mhm.
Making appointments with the embassy in Peru to like come over. Like, it's this mess. It's so
Mhm.
complicated. And funerals are so hard already because you're in like the hardest part of, like, just like a really deeply painful time,
Mhm.
and you have to plan a funeral. And it is extremely expensive to die. It's so expensive to die. Like, it's expensive to live, but it's also expensive to die. You can't just die. You got to have some
Mhm.
money or something because it's expensive. It's very expensive to die. Like, to be put in the ground. It's like, God damn, dude, why is it so expensive? Anyway, it's very expensive to die. And so there's all these things that need to get done. And so I was helping my dad as much as I could. I immediately emailed my professors. It's a
Mhm.
whole nother mess. About it. And, like I said, I've experienced grief of a close person before. 4 years ago, my grandmother, who also lived with us even longer than that, she's been with me since I was like 4 or 5. And
Mhm.
she had come, like, I think a year or two before my uncle. And she lived with us. She took care of us. I am currently in the room that she passed away in.
Mhm.
So now we've had 2 deaths here in this home. Um, and I remember that I was a mess. I remember how hard it was. And I remember when my uncle passed away later that year, a different uncle on my mom's side, who was also very, very close to somebody who I really looked up to. Um, they passed away as well. And I remember how distraught I was, how depressed I got, how much I isolated, how I tried to jump into life, and I remember putting that strong front on. I remember in that moment thinking, don't try to pretend like you can just jump into everything. So I emailed my
Mhm.
teachers. I was like, I'm going to need a week's extension. This is what's going on. I can't even this upcoming week. I don't want to be able to have to do anything. My teacher was like, yep, cool, that's fine. Thank you for letting us know. And yeah, we just proceeded. That day was just a lot of phone calls and paperwork and notes, and my mom feeding us. That day's kind of a blur. One of the gifts that Chato gave me was that earlier that week before he passed, I had asked my dad that if for my birthday we could go visit my big brother the way that we did for his birthday, where we just socially distanced at a park with masks on and had food. And my dad said no. And I remember when he said that, I cried. Not in front of him. I went to my room
Mhm.
and I cried because I really wanted to see my big brother Frank for my birthday. So one of the
Mhm.
gifts that Chato gave me was I got to see Frank, because the next day my dad, he was like, I just want to drive and drive and drive and drive. And I told him, well, why don't we? Why don't we? And my mom was like, that's what we're going to do. And then my dad wanted to see Frank. So we went to go drop off. My mom earlier that week had made some tamales for her family to go drop off at one person's house and for people to
Mhm.
pick up or whatever. But we didn't end up going the day she was supposed to because of my uncle's COVID test, just in case
Mhm.
there was an actual exposure. We didn't want to expose anybody. We were all like in the house too. Um, and so we went to go finally drop them off. And then
Mhm.
that was in Daly City. And then we drove up to my brother in Santa Rosa. And I
Mhm.
had already called him. I was also the one to give him the news.
Mhm.
Um, my older brother has ADHD like myself, but he's also autistic.
Mhm.
So although he's the eldest, I've always been treated like the eldest. And
Mhm.
I'm given the eldest child's position
Mhm.
formally. Anywho, but he's still my big brother, and as someone who is not neurotypical, he definitely deals with death differently. That is the best ASMR ever. I'm so sorry, my
Oh
ADHD
yeah.
brain got activated. The sound of the ice as well as the train sounds so soothing. Anywho, that's coming from Bayside.
I didn't hear the train until you pointed it out.
Yeah, I
Which,
can hear the train. It's
funny
like
enough,
doo,
that
doo.
that will come up later. Yeah, the
Yeah.
train stuff. Yeah.
Okay. Anywho, um yeah, so I was the one to call, and normally this is when Daniela falls asleep whenever she starts, because now
Mhm.
we're jumping into kind of the grief portion of things. um I love the drive through the city. My dad took my favorite route, which is the one that takes you through like the backside of San Francisco. I
Mhm.
love that drive. I could not stay awake. I knocked out immediately. Uh, we went to Santa Rosa. We got pizza. We got ice cream. We went to the mall. It was really nice. I got to see my big brother. I
Mhm.
missed him, and I was really glad to be able to see him before my birthday. Um, yeah, it was what we needed. And then we went home, and guess what? Girl fell asleep in the car again too. And then after that, the next few days, I just could not sit down without falling asleep, because I just kept falling asleep everywhere. I just was
Mhm.
like falling asleep, falling asleep, falling asleep. I still couldn't believe it, but I was pretty engulfed in all of it. I organized a GoFundMe, which I will link below. If
Mhm.
you are able to, again, he was the breadwinner of his family. He provided for his family. Um, we are all doing the best that we can to assist with that. But, like I said, funerals are expensive. So I was the one that suggested that we do a GoFundMe to help with the funeral expenses, um, through donations, because people had been asking me about that. And so I created a GoFundMe. I will link that down below. There is no donation too small, and also just sharing it is also very much appreciated. But yeah, we got a GoFundMe going, which honestly I stopped promoting up until yesterday, because I avoided everything related to my uncle up until like yesterday, because it was just I knew that it was eventually going to hit me. And yeah, that first week helping my dad out, I was very go, go, go mode. I was very involved. I was making phone calls constantly between Kaiser and like the social workers and his job, and just like looking things up and just trying to be there for myself. And it was also the week of my birthday. So um, wanting to having this feeling of at first being like my birthday's canceled, I don't want to celebrate my birthday, but then
Mhm.
also still having this desire to want to celebrate, but feeling very guilty for wanting to. Thankfully, it took people like Bay and some of my cousins being like, Daniela, you love your birthday, and you know that he would want you to celebrate. You should still do something. You're not a bad person. I felt like I was a bad person. I felt like if I celebrated my birthday, people would be like, she doesn't give a fuck about her uncle, which is like not true, right? But like,
Mhm.
I was worried that people would think, God, she's so self absorbed that she can't even you know, and also nobody in my house really wanted to celebrate because
Of
everyone down.
course.
So I didn't expect them to want to or anything, but I wanted to do something for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I did. It was nice. I will talk about birthday stuff another podcast. But I did. And sadly, when my birthday and Valentine's Day passed, I no longer had any distractions.
Mm-hmm.
And my truth came forward. And my truth is, I couldn't be strong. I wanted so badly to be the pillar of the family. I wanted
Mm-hmm.
so badly to be the rock that held everybody up. And once my birthday was gone and Valentine's Day had passed, I realized that I'm just not that person, or I'm
Mm-hmm.
not that person yet. I don't know if I'd ever be that person. I realized that my mental stability was just not in a place where I could really actually do that. And I felt really
Mm-hmm.
guilty about that. I felt like this is my first time actually talking about this, but I felt like I'm too broken to be that person. Like I don't have the capacity to be a strong person. I'm just too
Mm-hmm.
sad. And that following week, I spent most of it in bed. I didn't shower for days or put deodorant on or anything. And it wasn't a conscious decision. It was more of just like I couldn't remember to, didn't have the energy to. I ate a lot, which is fine. You know, I eat my feelings sometimes. You do what you
Mm-hmm.
got to do to get through things sometimes. Working on that in therapy, so don't come for me. Not like anybody would. Oh my God, sorry. um, but yeah, it was really hard. It was really hard. And towards the end of that week, I realized that I came to terms and accepted, Daniela, you're depressed. You're depressed. This is depression. You know what this is. You're depressed. You can't wake up. You don't have any motivation for anything. You keep forgetting to put on deodorant. You're not
Mm-hmm.
like you don't want to do anything. Like you're avoiding literally everything. You're starting to isolate. I was starting to isolate. And earlier that week it had been Candy's birthday and I took
Mm-hmm.
her on this really long walk, our favorite walk. And before that, when my uncle had passed, anytime I went on a walk, that was my time to break down because this was my first time dealing with grief because I've dealt with grief before, right? But this was my first time
Of
dealing with
course.
grief where I lived
Mm-hmm.
in the house that they passed in and that they actively lived in. This was my first time because, like, when my grandma died, like, I'm here now. I didn't live here. I was married. I lived somewhere else. So I could be strong here and then I could go home and break the fuck down with my ex husband and just
Mm-hmm.
cry and be unproductive and depressed there. But here, I couldn't do that because people could hear me if I cried. I didn't, I don't feel like I can break down here. And so every time I went on walks prior to Candy's birthday, I would go on these walks alone and I did them at night because I didn't
Mm-hmm.
want anybody to see me because I was crying on these walks. Go on these walks
Mm-hmm.
and I would just start crying and I'd cry and I'd cry and I'd cry. And I eventually stopped wearing makeup because one night I got home and I looked like a fucking raccoon. I had mascara all over my face. I was like, damn, bitch, you really cried. And so for her birthday, we went on a really, really long walk during the day. And I realized that having her around me, Candy is my emotional support animal. That's why I got her. But I hadn't
Mm-hmm.
updated my prescription in a few years because I got to a point where I felt like I could go places without her. That day,
Mm-hmm.
walking around with her, this is the 16th, I remember being like, hey, you need to update your prescription because having her around is very calming. I felt those feelings of wanting to cry, but she was just such a happy soul and she can really detect it that um that I was able to not push past, but just like feel more at ease, just a little bit more in
Mhm.
control, a little bit more at ease. Cause I was starting to get to the point where I felt like I wasn't in control of my emotions anymore. Like I felt like I was
Mhm.
just like an emotional wreck, which I kind of was for a little bit, which is okay. Um, and I felt like I wasn't being honest with myself. And I realized it was in that moment that I realized, all right, you're depressed. You need to make some updates, some changes. So I reached out to my therapist and I sent them an email saying, hey, I think I need to update my prescription for Candy as my emotional support animal. Can you help me with
Mhm.
that? I read somewhere that it only lasts a year. Da, da, da. They had made the initial prescription for me the first time. Um, and then I did what my therapist had suggested, which actually I mentioned, and they said that sounds like a good Daniela. That sounds like a good idea, Daniela, which was to have a more active support circle. Because
Hmm.
normally I'm the type of person where, because I've always been a person in relationships, right? I'm the type of person that when I'm in a relationship, when I'm going through something, when I'm depressed, when there's grief, I lean all the way on my significant other completely.
Mhm.
And I isolate from everyone else. But my significant other has a life, right? So like
Uh-huh.
you shouldn't, and it also wasn't good for me because it made me very codependent. And it also made me isolate from everyone, and it didn't really actually make it was soothing, but it had its good and its bad, right? And
Mhm.
so this time around, I know that kind of stuff and I'm like I need to create a support circle. And so I immediately like not immediately, but at this point, I finally actually put it into action. I started a group chat with my closest cousins and closest friends. And some of them already knew kind of what was coming. And so I told them I need a support circle. This is just for me to, because I realized I like to be heard. I like to be,
Mhm.
I don't necessarily need advice. It's more like I just need somewhere where I can pour out my
Mhm.
feelings and have someone pay attention to me. And I can't
Mhm.
expect that out of one person or two people or like a one way avenue because people have lives and work. And if I have a group chat, so the idea of the group chat is just for me to have a place where I could send a message into and whoever's available will reply. Not everybody has to reply. It's not like that. Just someone will
Mhm.
reply. And whether it's validation or this or that, whatever it is, just someone to listen to me. I started that. All of y'all, because you best believe Bay is in this support chat. All of y'all have
Mhm.
been, you guys have been so understanding and wonderful. I was so afraid to do this because I was afraid. I know that none of y'all feel this way about me, but that
Mhm.
thought in my head is like, you're about to burden people. They're going to be annoyed with you. Why does Daniela want special treatment? Why is Daniela so broken? Like, oh God, like, I just don't like feeling broken. And sometimes I feel that way because there's this frustration of, I just want to be happy. And I feel
Mhm.
like something's always happening. And I feel like I have a harder time than most people. I feel like I well, I don't know. I feel like, okay, I feel like I have a
Mhm.
harder time. I was gonna say no, I know, and then I'm like, oh, but you don't know. But I feel like I have a harder time than most people bouncing back from things. I feel like I'm very intense. I feel my emotions very, very intensely. My therapist says that has to do with my ADHD. Anywho, and also I have PTSD. So there's that. But I feel my emotions more intensely than people. Like when I'm really happy, I'm like really, really happy. When I'm in
Mhm.
love, like, oh, I love so hard. I pour my soul. I'm very intense with all of my emotions. When you do piss me off, oh bitch, I'm mad. But I don't get mad easily though. That's one great thing. But when I'm sad, I'm very, very, very sad. Woe is me. The world is falling apart. That's how I feel. And I've been called dramatic. And so I've been really nervous to make that support group. And it's not like I message into it every day, just whenever something's going on. I think this week has been the most active week. But this week has actually been a great week. This week was actually a good week. I had a really bad week last week, and then I started situating things. That was one, Candy's prescription being updated and taking her everywhere with me. I took her to work last week.
Mhm.
Two, creating that support circle and everybody being so fucking nice. so nice and loving, and it's exactly what I was hoping for and needing and wanting. I send a message and whoever is next available will reply something, and
Mm-hmm.
it's great, it works. And then eventually I've noticed that not everybody has to chime in, but everybody seems to want to chime in, so they all like
Mm-hmm.
will reply with their 2 cents, and it's just kind of nice to have different perspectives. And there's just this like love and respect, and I really appreciate it. 10 out of 10 would recommend you get a support circle when you're going through it. Oh my god, it's great. um and then I started being more honest with myself at the turn of last weekend. I no Over the weekend I started just like processing things and realizing I'm not being honest with myself. And at the beginning of this week, I came to terms with like things like perfectionism and being honest with the people around me, the people who are very, very close to me, someone who I care very near and dear for. I wasn't being honest about how this was affecting me. And I realized that I was kind of hiding part of myself and hiding the fact that maybe I'm not perfect and feel like I need to be
Mm-hmm.
perfect, and opening up about that. And it's been liberating. So this week, I have been more motivated. I've been getting stuff done. I did still have some hard things going on, but I'm trying to roll with it. Um, it still hasn't hit me that he's gone, and that scares me. It
Mm-hmm.
scares me for the effects of my depression. That's what it scares me,
Mm-hmm.
because it hasn't hit me. I'm not going to sit here and act like I've accepted it. I haven't, because I've
Of
been
course.
avoiding talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's weird. I don't know. Sometimes when people I'm at this stage right now where maybe I'm in denial,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe sometimes it's turning into angry denial, because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes when people like come at me and they're like, "Oh, well, grief is hard," and da 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 da, like when they're not close to me, like, and when I didn't
Mm-hmm.
ask, and when I didn't even bring it up, when they bring it up, when I'm just like trying to have a regular conversation with someone and they're like, "Yeah, da 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 da," I'm like, it. I know they mean well, but for whatever reason, I think I'm starting to enter that angry phase, which I need to figure that out, because I find myself feeling annoyed, and I'm like, what is going on? And I know that that's natural, because I remember when my other uncle passed away, Pascual, having those angry outbursts, and it's because I'm not dealing with something inside. So I got to do that. But yeah, that's kind of been my experience, and this is my first time talking about it in a while.
Yeah, so first, like I wanted to say, well, one, I'm still here, guys. I know you guys have just been listening to on
Dude,
my
my
end.
arms
I've
hurt
been here.
so much. I'm sorry. I've been hugging this pretty tight. My arms hurt so bad now.
Anybody who's watching saw my pen going crazy this entire time. I am still here, guys. But yeah, first I wanted to thank you for sharing that, like the play-by-play, because I know that's actually one of the harder parts in talking about the passing of like a loved one. To this day, I don't talk about. So yeah, I'll address my experience with grief really briefly, because this will kind of ties into what we're talking about. Is I lost my grandma 2 years ago. You know, in 2000, 2 years, 3 years almost. You know, because it's 2021. I always
Yeah.
forget. But yeah, 2018, October 2018, I lost my grandma. And I think I've touched upon it before, back in October, because it had been her 2 year anniversary. And she was someone that she raised me. So I was very much close to her, very much, she was like a mother to me. Like it literally, la luz de mis ojos, literally. And so it was so hard for me. And to this, 2 years seems like a long time. Like, oh, you're moving on, everything's great. Now to this day, I don't talk about it. I don't talk about it. I don't talk about. Ooh, it is hard for me to talk about it in the way the play-by-play that Daniela just did. It is very difficult for me. To this day, I don't talk about it. Only close people know. The only time I ever talk about it is when I reminisce with the people who were there, like my mom. My mom and I were there the entire day. And let me tell you that that was something that stuck with me forever. And that's probably why it's difficult to talk about, is that I saw you see someone progress through the stages of like death, and it was forever burned in here. And it's super hard to talk about. So that's been my experience with grief. And around this significant event in my life that was with dealing with grief, I had other smaller events with important people in my life as well that were not my grandma per se, but were very close family members as well. They were actually my grandma's sisters. I had my aunts, or I don't know, we always call them tias, but yeah, I had aunts of mine pass away that were, you know, in relation to my grandma, and very, and I guess what I felt were like the last pieces I had of my grandma. Like I had an aunt of mine pass before, and that was really difficult. Before my grandma passed, her younger sister passed like 6 months prior, and it was very hard because I was dealing with that grief and that disbelief. And I don't, you know, I don't think I ever really see, the thing is, I don't ever think I'd actually dealt with any of these deaths. And so you say it doesn't hasn't hit you and everything. I don't think I ever dealt with these, to be honest, to this day, because I was very much still processing her death, and then 6 months later, my grandma died, and that was the biggest thing of my life because since I was a kid, I feared the day that she would die. I was raised by an elderly person. I always talk about this, and one of the layers to that is you fear the day they're going to die. If the fear came true, it happened. The day I had been so scared of happened, and it was difficult. It was so difficult, especially what we just talked about, like, you know, the play by play and being there the whole day and being there the moment. Whew, it was probably one of the hardest things I've ever dealt with. And then a year later, I had her, you know, her
Older
no,
sister?
another, yeah, no, not her older sister. She was the oldest.
Oh,
Another
okay.
sister of hers passed away as well. And she was the last person who I felt was like the last piece of my grandma, because she had all the memories. She reminded me of my grandma so much. She would call, and my mom and her would just talk about my grandma and reminisce. And it's nice to have someone who can relate to, you know, your pain. And then she passed, and that's been really hard too, because she was a very big part of my childhood. She was definitely someone who gave me a lot of advice. She was actually, as funny as it sounds, because, you know, I talk about my grandma being my maternal figure. Her sister was my grandmotherly figure. Which is interesting because, you know, but the fact that I didn't see her as often, the fact that she always had some advice to give, and it was just, you know, I felt I had this soft spot in my heart for her. And then she passed, and then it's like, here we go again. And it was for both of these, all three of these actually funerals, or all three of these family members, their funerals and burials were out in El Salvador. I did not travel for the first one, for that, you know, the one that I mentioned that was 6 months before my grandma died. I didn't travel, and to this day I think I regret that. But I don't know, maybe for some reason I wasn't meant to be there. But I didn't travel for that one, but I traveled for the other two, and it is a lot. I can totally relate to your experience of getting caught up in the hustle and bustle, and the process right after someone passes is really difficult because it's a lot of decisions, it's a lot of paperwork, it's a lot of things. And one of the things that I wrote down, you guys saw me write things down, that
Yeah.
I wrote down that you were talking about is that being the strong person, being the pillar of your family, being all these things. And let me tell you guys, this is a we controversial, but that is, I don't know where we get this idea from, because I'd like to know too. But probably one of the more toxic things that you can do to yourself in a time of
Oh,
grief.
100%. I know that damn well.
Mhm.
But I just felt like nobody else was strong enough to do it. And my
And
dad
that,
should, and the person who is strong enough to do it, my dad, should not. Because as he said, this death hit him harder than
mm-hmm,
my grandma passing. And I would agree. This death has hit me harder, and it still hasn't even hit me. That's the shit that gets me.
mm-hmm,
This death has hit me harder, and it still hasn't hit me. And I'm afraid for the velorio and the funeral, the whole funeral thing. I'm so nervous about how it's gonna hit me. That
it's difficult.
yeah. So I
It's
felt
it's
like
hard.
I have to do it. I don't know. I felt like I had something to prove. I felt like, I don't know, maybe as a mixture of I've already been so sad and depressed all year. Well, bitch, you just said you got that balance in life. Here comes that strength too. And it just
It's hard, and I
nobody
think
has to be
it's
strong. I don't know why we think
nobody.
we
That's
have
the
to.
thing. Yeah, it shouldn't be anybody. And, you know, I think that's one of the hardest things, because that is actually what I will say. That is what I joke about it all the time, because, you know, humor to deal with like grief and things like this. I joke that that is what ended up unhinging me in the end, was that I took upon the entire responsibility of like my grandma's funeral and everything related to this. Not only was when my, because, you know, I think I mentioned before, my grandma died of ovarian cancer. I was the person who stayed at home with her and took care of her and fed her and all of these things. I took upon that responsibility, not as severely as my mom did, because my mom was an only child, so she took upon that entire responsibility. But I took a part of that chunk as well. And then on top of that, I took charge of that entire funeral process, emergency passports, everything, every phone call that needed to be made. I made it. I was there in the funeral home picking out the casket. Like, I was down to every little detail. And because, we feel that we need to be strong, or we feel all of these things, right? Regardless of how we process. Because I'm somebody who, a little more emotionally detached. I'm not somebody who feels intensely. I do, but it's very hard for me to express. But because I felt that, oh, I've been gifted with this, and I am not crying or sobbing like the rest of my family, so that means I must be the one. And that is what completely unscrewed every screw that's ever held my brain together, because that whole process of doing that, I was also the person who delivered the eulogy at her funeral. I have it. I thought that on this podcast I was gonna read it, but I was like, nope, we're not there yet. You see,
And
it's
that's
2 years
okay.
later. Yeah, where it's 2 years later, and you see there's still this barrier. There's still this wall. It's. I think that's the thing about grief, is that it's almost like not reoccurring, because that sounds dark, but it's like something that it's a long process. But for some reason, we believe that we should be strong, and that we'll push through, and that in a matter of months or in a year we will be all good. But we won't, because I'm not. Especially after pushing through. I pushed through, guys. I pushed through my grandma's death. I was strong when I needed to be. I delivered that eulogy. I did not I told myself, okay, you can cry, but in the privacy of your room, don't you start crying in front of everybody else. I did
You know
that.
what's wild about that too? Because I was just
Mm-hmm.
thinking that real quick. You can cry, but that doesn't mean that you've processed it or dealt with it at all. Because when you
Mm-hmm.
were saying that, I was like, yeah, I've definitely pushed through before. Like, for example, sorry to cut you off. When my grandma and Tio Pascual died, 4 years ago, they died in the same year. That is
Mm-hmm.
the year that I gained like 40 pounds in 1 year. I found out I was bi that summer, came to terms with a lot of that year was fucking hard. Anywho, although I cried a lot at home, I wasn't dealing with my emotions. And then I hit rock bottom and became extremely suicidal after my uncle died, and I started going to therapy. And I think that part of me wanted to do the strongness of pushing through again with my uncle, but because I found balance and because I've been healing, my body was like, that's not how we do things anymore. These feelings are here and we're going to feel them. So I can resonate with that whole wanting to like push through the hustle and bustle of everything.
Yeah.
And crying still doesn't mean that you've like processed it. Like I wrote down a question. I don't know if it's too soon to ask, but
Uh-huh.
um like okay, because like one thing that I think I had mentioned to you as far as like the grieving part is like I come from a Catholic home. I am not
Mm-hmm.
Catholic. I officially denounced Catholicism a week ago, which was hard to my mother, um,
Uh-huh.
who is very Catholic. And we did, but I do still like respect the traditions of things. I do believe in a higher power. In
Mm-hmm.
Mexican culture and Catholic culture, there's this thing called a novenario, which just means that when someone passes, you do 9 rosaries. So it's
Mm-hmm.
usually after the funeral. But because of COVID and all that stuff, the priest said it was okay that we start it earlier. So we did
Okay.
that. I did that too. I know all those. I felt that out of tradition, it was right to do. Anywho, my mom wanted us to let go on the last day. My mom said on the last day, we have to let him go. I got really angry. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
say it to her. And then she didn't end up forcing us to let go. Me and my brothers did not let go. But like her and my dad did this thing where they said, like, we let you go. I wasn't ready because I still haven't accepted that he's gone. And I don't want to let go on somebody else's terms. I want to let go on my terms. I mean, I'm not trying to hold him here forever, but I'm not ready.
Mm-hmm.
Have you let go?
I figured that question was coming, and I always ask myself, have I, and have I? And I also think, I think I have, because I definitely have accepted her death. And you know what's really interesting is that, and I think this is because all of these deaths that I had in my family, um, some were sudden, some they were sick for a while. My grandma was sick for a while.
Mhm.
So the thing is, I think I let go the moment she died. That's the thing. Because
Um,
I,
because
I
when
saw,
you
I,
see it coming, it's like you
yeah,
already
that.
prepare yourself.
And also, well, I think is like we talk about how well, this is the thing that I meant to touch upon. Is that you talked about how you felt sad the day before and all these other things, and like, you know, how your body feels it. And every time if someone, you know, always asks me that, I again, how you never imagined it going to pass, never thought that that day my grandma was going to die. I didn't feel anything. I slept soundly like a baby the night before. I went to work the day before. In fact, I came home annoyed from work the day before. Unfortunately, like, you know, I every time there's this belief in Salvadoran culture that if you dream about your teeth falling out or anything to do with your teeth, right? That it's a bad omen. It signals that somebody's going to die. And I used to be fearful of those dreams all the time. I used to be fearful. I used to think, oh my God, I hope I don't dream this thing. And I used to be scared about it. And I sometimes I have and now what's funny is that I have those dreams sometimes now. And my mom is like, "Oh my God, bad omen." And I tell her, I wish I would have dreamt something to tell me. I didn't. I was completely unprepared for this to happen. And then I think what helped me accept was that I saw her move through the stages of death. And I think that eventually helped me let go by the time we got to death. So I think that's what happened. Because the moment that she died, I felt, well, it's over now. It's over. It's hard because, you know, you have to heal, and that's the hard part. But I thought, her story ended here. It's over. And it made me really sad. But
It's okay.
sorry, guys. The quiet and the pauses are
Don't apologize. You never need to apologize for feeling. As someone wise once told me, son tus ojos. Si quieres llorar, llora. It's okay.
I get silent when I feel emotional. But yeah, you know, I still get emotional 2 years later. I'll probably still get emotional 10 years later. You
Yeah.
know, I think that it's, you know, said grief is a long process, and you let them go, but I don't know if you ever fully let go. Because like I said, for me, when I talk about grief, it's like I'm there. And that's something that I often ask myself, because I, you know, I had to be strong, because I felt like I had to, you know, because my mom fell apart, my brother fell apart. You know, my stepdad is like, you know, here, but he was not, I think he was dealing in his own way. And so I felt that I needed to take upon that responsibility. And, you know, I did everything. And I remember that slowly, as the screws came loose in my head, I asked myself, like, because I also felt annoyed, but not at people, in general, upset about everything, upset about life. I'd, you know, go to work and cry in my car, pull it together in 5 minutes and go inside and go to work, you know. And I got stuck in the hustle and bustle. And then I would see people freely feel their emotions. Like my mom would cry all the time. I'd be upset, I'd be angry. But I think I was angry because I was holding myself to an inhuman standard to not cry about my grandma, to not allow myself to grieve my grandma. Why? You know? And so I think eventually, once the screws came loose and I realized, holy shit, I'm having a really, really hard time. And I am not being honest. And I am doing nothing to move forward except for push through, push through, push through. It'll get better someday. I realized you are not like, what are you doing? You know, like you're torturing yourself to a degree where not even, and nobody else is torturing themselves like this. And I know we think, well, nobody else will do it. I have to be strong. But the point is, you will find a way. You'll find a way. You don't have to be anything for anyone. You don't have to earn your place in your family. You don't have to. It's really interesting, because I often wondered why I did that. And I think it was just the same thing that I mentioned about having you know, being more emotionally disconnected. And as baby of the family, you know, because I'm baby in my family, very much the youngest, and the youngest girl. So you think, oh, you are wiped clean of any responsibility. But no, I absorbed.
Bullshit.
Yeah, right. I
Bullshit as a
absorbed.
Latina.
Yeah, I absorbed all of like the responsibility. As you know, youngest female, I could have easily just cried and done that and everything. And I told myself, no, I'm not going to do that. But it's like, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with just
I think
crying and
sometimes it's
expressing?
also the resistance of being
Yeah.
what they expect us to be.
Mm-hmm.
There's just I started crying when you were talking about all this. I can't remember what it was that you said that triggered it, but it just made me think about this last week. In I've been having a lot of breakthroughs
Uh-huh.
outside of, I think that my uncle's death is forcing me to dive deeper into
Mm-hmm.
my mind, continue to dive
Yeah.
into my mind, but this time dive deep into the side of perfectionism and how it
Mm-hmm.
rules everything around me, and how it I don't know how deep I want to go into this just yet.
That's fine.
I don't know that I'm gonna go so deep, but essentially saying, like, being someone who's perfectionist, someone who is not very mentally stable all the time, that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Not neurotypical. I don't process things the way that the rest of my family does.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure they're still having a hard time, but my mom went back to work on Monday that following week. My dad tried to go back to work a few days later, and his job was like, no, Jorge, take some time off. My little brother did not stop school. My other brother went to work. Um, I couldn't. I sat there in my room that following week after my birthday and pretended to do homework so that they wouldn't yell at me if I wasn't, because everybody else bounced back and I couldn't. But I didn't want anyone to know that I couldn't bounce back, because sometimes I just get tired of being the sad girl. Sometimes I have this voice in my head. There's this asshole, toxic ass motherfucker I dated. Um, After I got divorced for a few months.
Uh-huh.
And he saw me go through some shit because he was my rebound, let's be real.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, I think you just like being sad. You like it. You like to be sad. You want to be sad. And I was like, what? You think I like this? You think this is fun for me? First of all, there was a lot of things wrong with him. He was a piece of
Of
crap.
course.
He was just trying to, he liked to tear me down to make me lean on him further.
Mm.
Um, but that voice rings in my head. And so I always feel guilty for being sad.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't being honest with myself, wasn't being fully honest with my family. And I wasn't being honest with some very, 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 very special people in my life about how I actually felt. And I was pretending that I was being strong and that things were okay. And when they'd ask me how I was doing, I was like, it's okay. I'm okay. But I wasn't okay. I was crying.
Yeah.
I was, I stink because I couldn't shower. I was pretending to do homework. I was eating my feelings. My hair was just, what? I was not okay. I was very much not
Of
okay.
course.
But I was not being honest because I was afraid to be judged for not being able to bounce back. Sometimes it feels like people are like, oh, I'm so sorry for your loss. And then 2 weeks go by and they're like, so like you need to turn in this, and that, and I need this. They just expect you to, like,
Yes.
everyone's supposed to have, this is your window of grief. And by the time this window comes, you need to be a full functioning adult. And that's just not how it works. Like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna be so thankful and grateful to one of my teachers who, when I sent that email out, they were like, do not worry about it. Whenever you're ready to come back, even if it's not the week, we will figure it out. You need to be with your family. What you're going through is difficult. I had two teachers who were very much like that, and one who I will not talk about. But
Okay.
like, most people aren't like that. They just expect you to just, like, so I felt that pressure to just pretend like I was okay, like, and I'm not. And this week is better. Like, I'm productive, but like I'm not going to sit here and be like I'm okay. Like, I've been afraid to go to sleep. This week I started having night terrors.
Yeah.
Not necessarily about the death, but just things that I had been going through in the last year. They're all surfacing. My
Yeah.
ADHD symptoms are like super high. Like people just expect you to kind of move on, and like you said, it's a more complex process than even we know. And it's, you know, like
Exactly.
people say, like there's like I've said this before, but like now there's like a new little hole in my heart and I have to learn to live with it. I think that's a very accurate description, because if you have a heart and there are some holes in it, whenever you think about that hole, it hurts,
Yeah.
because there's a hole there, right? There shouldn't be a hole there. And you just learn to live with it. But whenever you think about that hole, it hurts. Because when you think about, like, if you physically had a hole in your heart, that shit would hurt. Shit would
Yeah.
hurt. It's always going to hurt because it's never going to be fully mended. You just kind of learn to deal with that pain. But whenever you think about it, because, like, you know, my grandmother died, my tita died 10 years ago. And I think
Mhm.
about her often, and I think about how she was suffering. And it was easier to let her go because she was suffering for a long time. So by the time
Mhm.
she went, you know, even my abuelita Hilda, my, you know, she came for her chatito, but when she passed, she was sick the previous months leading up, not years like my other grandmother, who years
Yeah.
of suffering, but she did have some months leading up, and so had time to process it. With my tío Pascual, he was pretty sudden too, but he was in the hospital in Tubalo for like a week, so we all had that week to accept he's once we pull that plug, he's gone. This is
Yeah.
literally just for us to say goodbye and to maybe hope that there's a solution, but it doesn't seem like it. Um, Whereas this one,
It
it
was
just,
sudden.
it was not to diminish any pain from any other grief. It's just different.
It's different. Yeah.
It's not that it hurts. I don't know that I could say, I don't know that I could say that it hurts more, because there are people in my life who I think will hurt way more that haven't gone yet. But this, I've never had an issue with letting go, to be honest. And I cannot. And I know that I should, but
It's
I
still in
cannot.
time.
It's just not
It's
time.
not. That's not time for it. That's another thing too. We talked about grief and the expectation, is that it's very, you know, I nobody told me you need to let go of your grandma, because I'll talk about that one because that's the hardest one for me.
Yeah.
You need to let go of your grandma. You need to let go of her. Nobody ever said that to me, or nobody ever said. In fact, my job was more than understanding. My mom's job was more than understanding. You know, like we took over a month off, and of course that month was spent traveling, because we were in Salvador, and we came back, and then a lot of things and had to change. The day I came back from El Salvador was one of the hardest days ever. I remember that, because nothing had been touched in here. We share that in common, is that we sleep in the rooms where our grandmas died. My grandma died in this room, and for the longest time, things were not touched. I didn't see. The thing is, on the outside, yeah, being honest and everything, on the outside, it seemed like I was doing okay-ish. Of course, I was not the best and the happiest. I was not over here smiling and laughing, but I was going to work. I was definitely still taking showers. I was still eating. I was doing everything that you would think, oh, okay, she just learned to deal with it. But not really. What I just did is just keep pushing through and push it off and not really think about it. And we used to, we're not Catholic, but every 24th we used to pray and rosario for her all the time. And during those moments, again, still, we were very, we have pictures of her in my room. We'd sit in front of the picture and, do it, and nothing. Just sit there and it wasn't that I was numb because I was sad, but I was just actively trying to get back into the swing of life and all these things, even though I had all the time. That's the thing I always tell people, is that we have all the time we need. Not all the time that we want, but all the time we need. Time is lo que sobra sometimes. And I always told myself, you got time. And my supervisors told me, you need to talk to somebody. Everyone where I work pretty much is like a licensed therapist, and they were like, or has like a degree in psychology. They're like, you can talk to somebody if you need to. And I'd say, no, thanks for the offer, but I'm great. I'd say things like that, or I just keep people on the way. They'd be like, oh, I'm so sorry, how are you doing? I'm all right. I'd say like that. I wouldn't say, oh, you know what, I haven't thought about it in months. And so that's the thing that happened to me, is that I realized life was passing me by, and I was like, wow, I actually haven't thought about it. And I think that's why the hole in my heart still hurts too, because a lot of those months that went by, I wasn't actually unpacking or thinking about things. I just had it, accepted it, kept it pushing and never thought about it. Sometimes I struggle to think about it. Sometimes I struggle to, obviously, to talk about it, but to think about it.
Because you're
Sometimes,
afraid to feel those feelings that you felt so
yeah,
briefly there because they're
yeah.
intense. I think that's why when I tell you guys
Mm.
that we were supposed to start at 10 and I was still in bed at 10, like
Yeah.
I'm wearing my pajamas. This is what my hair looked like. I didn't do squat. I just put gloss on. That's it. Cause my lips looked crusty. But
Yeah.
it's those feelings, they're scary because they
Hmm.
hurt.
They hurt.
They
And you
hurt.
don't want to feel them.
Yeah. And
Like that,
sometimes
that's,
remembering them, even in the nice ways, can hurt
hmm,
because I want to end on that note. So I will wait on that. But when we get to the end, I want to end on the note of who Chata was to me.
okay.
All of the good memories, but they can be hard sometimes
They can.
because they make you miss that person even more.
Yeah. So you don't think about them. They have a space in your heart, but you never look at them. The picture lives here. I never stopped to look at it. I never stopped to remember what she smelled like. I'm like, oh God, no. I'm like, no, no, no. I'm like, oh, I know. It's not that I have any resentment or like that, but I'm like, oh God, no. God forbid that my brain goes there. So I just say, she's in a better place. She's in a better place. She's in a better place. Like everything, every time anyone ever brought up her passing, I'd say, she's in a better place. She doesn't suffer anymore. That's
Yeah.
what I'd say.
You know what? I
And
think maybe that's why I'm having a hard time when people like because it's 3 weeks later and some people are still like,
mm-hmm,
oh, I'm so sorry. This is and that. I think that that's
mm-hmm,
why I'm having a hard time too. I think that the annoyance is serving a mask for the pain that is trying to
mm-hmm,
surface as they say, I'm so sorry. All we can do is, like I've had people be like, all we can do is this, and that. I don't hear anything they say
yeah,
because I can't. It's not because I don't appreciate it. I do appreciate it, but
yeah,
it's hard. And I'm a very, as you guys all know, I'm a very emotional person. But see, I could cry in front of y'all because y'all ain't actually here. This is a camera and bay. I
yeah,
hate crying in front of people. Do I still cry in front of people? Yeah, because I'm very emotional, but I hate it. So I will usually try to stay away from certain topics or leave places if I feel like they're going there because I
mm-hmm,
don't like to get emotional in front of people. And my emotions are very strong. So they will full frontal just come out. So when people
mm-hmm,
come at me about my uncle stuff, I almost start, no, not almost, I immediately start disassociating. I don't
yeah,
know anything that you said. There are very particular people who I feel like I could break down with, and it's not even my parents.
yeah.
It's not. It's
And
it's
that's hard.
the very limited few people that I actually I don't know who I could break down with. I'm kind of in this place right now where I haven't been able to break down. Yeah, I haven't really been able to break down. I haven't been able to fall apart. And I'm having a little bit of a breakthrough in my mind right now of something outside of this that's very private. So I'm not going to talk
Yeah,
about it,
that's fine.
but yeah, I haven't been able to break down with anybody. And I usually like to have somebody that I can fall apart and break down with and I don't choose it because you would think, well, what about Bay?
Mm-hmm.
I can't force myself. Sometimes I can break down with Bay, but sometimes I can't. And I don't know what I don't know why. That's just me. That's just me.
You
And
can't force. I don't think you can force it ever, to be honest. And like I said, this the same way you can't force yourself to accept death and let them go. You cannot force yourself to break down and feel what you don't feel. And that's the thing. Like I mentioned about the other deaths in my family members outside of my grandma, but that were also close to me. I don't think I let them go, to be honest. With my grandma, I did. With them, I didn't. And I think because I couldn't even fathom allowing my brain to go there. And that's the thing about, being strong, is that it's a double-edged sword. Because if you trust me, I don't know if you guys are, this is such a bad parallel. I'm so sorry, guys. But I don't know if you guys saw this. I talked about this all Halloween. Is that Goosebumps movie? It's called The Haunted Mask, right? So what ends up happening in the movie is that this girl puts on this mask to be like scary, right? She wants to be brave and scary. It's funny because you talk about perfectionism being the thing that weighs you down. Bravery is the thing that I always wanted in my life, and that weighs me down, to be brave. So always force myself to be brave. And she puts on this mask, and the mask is stuck. she gets stuck inside of it. That's what happened to me, because I was trying to be strong and bravery and everything. It got stuck to the point where sometimes I tell myself, are you still wearing the mask? Like, did you ever take it off? When I told you, when I unscrewed everything inside of my brain, I told myself, take off the mask, it's hurting you. So I did. I did take off the mask, and I was honest with everybody around me. And I told her, but there are moments where I'll look at, I said that I don't look at her picture. There are moments where someone's like, okay, it's time to look at the picture. You're alone. You got the day off. This is the moment, So I'll go and I'll grab her picture and I'll look at it. Nothing. Nothing happens. Or I'll think about the memory. I'll pull the memory of the other family members. I'll think, how did she smell? How did her voice sound like? I'll even play the video sometimes if I do a video of my grandma, and nothing. And that's where I tell myself, I think that's the thing, is sometimes the mask fuses to your face and you can't undo it. And that's why I will sit here and warn y'all about the dangers of putting that responsibility upon yourself. Because let me tell you, nobody in my family told me to do that. No, my mom did not expect that of me. That was not expected of me. I think I did that to myself. And I understand it's a natural urge to want to be the person to step up and be that person, but it's so detrimental. And I said, maybe you feel the pressure from society and all these other things, and it is hard, but don't do it, because nobody knows what you feel, and you can't force yourself to feel better. You can't force yourself to jump back into work or school. And if those people don't understand, if those things don't understand, you will find a way. You will. I believe that there's always solutions, and I believe that there's always a way. And
so, no offense, but fuck them. Fuck them.
Yeah,
if they're not willing to understand that you need more time and that you're going through something hard, then you're so much better off without them.
You are. Exactly.
And if you have been that person, you need to start asking yourself, why are you being so hurtful?
And also,
what do you always say?
Te queda el saco.
Te queda el saco. If the shoe fits.
Yeah. And so I was always, definitely. Like, if you're that kind of person, you need to ask yourself, and wonder why you feel people, the need for them to move on quickly, and it's difficult. And so I wanted to make a little note, because I know because right now I just heard it not too long ago. You guys might have noticed. I think actually Daniela was talking about something heavy, and I think I smiled. But the reason I smiled is earlier when I grabbed my chai, she said, "Oh, the ASMR of the ice and the train." And I said, "I didn't even hear it." That's something that's significant, that stuck for me. My grandma, when she first, she lived in this room too. When she first moved here to this house, she was like, "The train is so loud. I can't sleep." And I said, "What train?" She's like, "The train." She's like, "It goes by all the time. It's so loud." And I remember I sat there and I thought, train. And I began to hear it after that. And I realized, wow, I had been living my life just in this hustle and bustle, school, work, everything. I never heard the train. And ever since she said that, I always heard the train. I heard it all the time. And it's funny because after, when she passed, I always heard the train, and the train haunted me almost. I used to hear it too much, and it used to make me think of her, and it was torturous, and I'd feel sad. And I always heard it, and I used to think, why did she say that? I can't unhear it now. I hear the train, and it makes me think of her. And then when Daniela said, "Oh, the train," and I didn't hear it, I was like, I didn't hear the train. I was like, when was the last time I heard the train?
Yeah, it had been going on for a while too.
And while you were talking about, your revelation, your breakthrough, I heard it, and I was like, oh my God. And so now that significance of the train morphed for me. I hear the train when I'm present, and it reminds me to be present, because for years I didn't hear that train. I don't know what she was talking about.
Maybe that's why you didn't hear it earlier, because
I wasn't present.
You were anticipating the anxious feelings of having to go to the past a little bit.
Yeah. And I think that's something that, things over time shift significance, because for me, it became something that was torturous and hard. And then it was something that, and now it's something that reminds me, when I hear the train, I tell myself, oh my God, I feel happy, because I'm like, oh, I'm actually here. Because for a long time, I was not here. I was somewhere else. I was somewhere else. And now when I hear it, I'm like, oh, I'm actually here. Like, and here and open to feeling things. And that's the thing that that's what grief taught me, is to be honest with the feelings now and try to be here now. And being honest with that, because I was always like, I don't feel good right now, but I'm going to push through. I'll feel good in 2 months. In 2 months, don't feel good still. And so that was,
did you ever have those moments where you would say, and I've done this a lot, I don't have time to break down right now. I will push through this week and then I can break down. But guess what? Something else comes up and then something else comes up and then something else comes up. I used to do that for years until I
Yup.
tried to do that this last year. You remember. Listen, y'all, Bay is the realest real one ever. She ain't ever getting rid of me. She's never getting rid of me. We're going to get married. It's going to be a whole thing. But no, for real. Because during the fall, I tried that a few times. And guess what? You fall apart and you explode. And she was the reciprocator of some of the times that maybe I wasn't so pleasant to be around, or when my moods would just shift left and right. And just an amazing, understanding, wonderful person. I remember so many times thinking in my head, she's gonna break up with me as like my best friend. I'm like, oh my God. But
It's patience. And what I want to make a note on that, because I want to talk about people who are maybe not going through grief, but maybe helping someone out through grief, right? Because that's also a process in its own. And also just in general, is also take care of them, but also take care of you. Also be patient and kind with yourself. You are not supposed to be perfect either, you know? Like this person is leaning on you. That doesn't mean you got to be seamless and perfect and
that also
like
doesn't mean
suddenly.
you can't open up to them about what you're going through. We want to hear
Yeah,
about it.
exactly. And
I
that's,
think.
that's, yeah, I think exactly, talk to the person, communicate. Don't feel, try to have, if you need time to step away as well, because grief is hard, especially if someone, if you're not even if you're directly experiencing it, it might be hard to see your loved one, or your friend or whoever experience grief so intensely. My mom experienced grief really intensely as well. And it was, let me tell you, leaving this house, like just to go anywhere, or go out with my then boyfriend, um, it was like an escape, because it was hard. Although I was dealing too, I was trying to be there for her, and I felt like everything I said needed to be positive and uplifting, and needed to be the perfect worded thing. And I told myself, look, yes, not only am I dealing with grief too, but it's like I don't need to be that.
Oh yeah.
It's
If
okay,
you're
and
a
it's
central person in someone's support circle, make sure you're doing self-care, because
yeah,
I can I know I know that I'm not a burden, but I know that that
no,
feeling exists for a reason.
mm-hmm,
I did see, okay. Saw someone who was not taking care of themselves and
mm-hmm,
let me lean all the way on them, but they did not take care of themselves. So guess what? They fell down too. It was not
mm-hmm,
my fault. It was not my fault.
no,
But for many years, I thought it was my fault. And for many years, that person threw it at me. They said that I was the reason that they were not mentally stable anymore. I was the
and
reason they were
that's
sad. I
not.
was the reason that they were depressed. And I internalized that. And now, because of that, I have a very hard time opening up to loved ones, significant others. I have a very, very hard time because I'm afraid that to hurt somebody.
Mm-hmm.
You can't hurt anybody with your pain.
You cannot. No.
But if you are in a support circle, you need to take care of yourself too. That's so true, because
Mm-hmm.
it might bring up things for you that are
Yeah.
hard. Or
Yeah.
also because the tone of voice may not always be the happiest with that person. So like, for
Mm-hmm.
example, this week has been really great, but like I can't guarantee that it's going to be great for the next few days. Or like, I had a hard moment the other night and it was really emotional. I've been having night terrors. Like Bay's been waking up to me being like, I had a dream about this, and that. And she's like, oh my God. And it's like, you don't know what to expect from that person emotion wise, which I mean, you don't really know what to expect from most people, but because grief, you know that it's going to be kind of hard sometimes.
Yeah.
So
Definitely.
you got to make sure you have some positivity in your life too. Balance.
Balance. Yes. Balance. Balance and communication, and maybe your own support circle, or maybe, like I said, like it's it's hard. And I think that's a one thing too, is that I think, see, that person you talked about, I think that they also were absorbing some of maybe society's toxicity, that someone leans on you, you gotta, oh well, your needs go out the window, oh well. And then maybe he was resentful, I don't understand. But point is, yes, then nobody's pain can hurt you and pull you down or do anything like that. But it can have some kind of effect on you if you are not careful to take care of yourself, or to, if you are not communicating, if you are not like, hey, you know what, like, I know you're dealing with things, but I need like little moment, or maybe I don't know, like definitely it's hard to navigate, and it's okay if you are someone who is trying to help someone through grief and you feel like you don't know what to do or what to say, or you're having a hard time too, trying to figure it out. That's okay too. You're not a shitty friend. You're not fucking up, and so just know that it's also valid for you to also need to take care of yourself and for you to practice patience with yourself as well.
Mm-hmm.
um yeah, so that was like my spiel on uh on grief and like helping someone deal with grief, and how grief, oh yes, this is a big one too, that grief also moves with, you can't have the good without the bad. Sometimes you'll have good days, and let me tell you, the good days are really nice. The bad days are,
Hell yeah.
the bad days suck, but the good days, I'm not going to say that the entire time I was miserable. I had good days. I had great things that happened to me while I was grieving my grandma's death. I had good things, amazing things happen. I had happy days. Me and my mom laughed sometimes, and that was so nice. And that didn't mean that suddenly I was healed and I was cured or whatever, or that suddenly everything was okay, but it was just a good day, and being able to have the good days with the bad. If you're having good days in your grief period, it's okay, let them happen. Let yourself have them. You're not selfish for smiling, the next day after someone passes. You're not selfish. You're allowing a good moment to happen. That's life. Life is good and bad. Life
Mm-hmm.
is not all bad. So yeah, and with that note, I'm gonna do
With
this
that
thing that I
note,
always do. Yeah, I'm gonna keep my lights on. I do this for I turn my lights on whenever it's like around death anniversaries or significant dates for people who have like passed on. And I always think that the light allows them to either like come here and like it kind of like a homing device, like they'll like see my lights from wherever they're from, and they'll get the energy of my lights. And so I always turn lights on, whether it's my little string lights here or these right here or whatever lights I have on. So I'm gonna turn my lights on for our family members who have passed and like need the light to either guide them or to center them in here. So yeah.
oh, look at you being all sweet.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, my grief process and how I deal with pain turned into comedy. I don't know if you
Yeah.
noticed, this whole time I've been trying to make sure that my mermaid's, what the fuck is her name? I think it's like Denise or something, which I was like, what the fuck? Why is her name Denise? That's Denise.
Oh, just kidding.
We gonna call her.
Why should be regular?
Why is it such a regular
Uh
name? No. Her name is Den whatever. Anyway,
huh.
I don't know if you noticed, because guys, here's the thing. I deal with pain through inappropriate comedy in the sense that like I just crack jokes that people are like, that's kind of heavy, but that's how I deal, dude. I don't know why. I just like to laugh. Anywho, I started
And
making,
sometimes it'd be like that.
do you see how she's drinking my chai? I've been doing that for a while.
She
And then I was
is.
like, she was at the
I
mic.
thought you were trying to reach the chai.
No, I moved the
Oh.
straw so that she could drink the chai. Anywho, yeah.
Oh, I thought you were trying to reach
No.
it.
On that
I'm gonna
note,
flip my
I want
script
to
around.
end on some positivity.
Oh, well, let me put the happy one. I was just kidding.
Yes,
Yeah,
I
I
love
was
that
gonna
thing.
put
I
the
need to get
mad
one.
one.
No, happy one.
Alright, put the
Positive
happy
note.
one.
I want to end on a positive note.
Mhm.
I want to really briefly tell you guys some of the funny memories we have with Chato. Um,
Okay.
So Chato is like my height. He's just like an inch taller than me. If you
Mhm.
know anything about Peruvians, you know that they're hella short. Yes, that is why I'm
Mhm.
short. Comment below how tall you think I am, because I always wonder how tall people think I am. I did reveal that I'm short, but I didn't tell you how short. He's only like,
Exactly.
yeah, he's like my height, like an inch taller than me. He's a bald-headed man. Um, I mean, he's always been bald since I've known him. I know he had hair at one point because, hair, but since I've known him, he's definitely had like the center thing bald. I used to cut his hair actually. I used to cut like, cause he would want to go full bald and we have some clippers at the house and I would like shave him all the way down bald. Yeah, so I used to cut his hair, the little bit that he had. I used to always want to go across the top, even though there was nothing there. Dude, we used to listen. Chato is a good sport. So in Peru, people, you don't go by your first name really.
Mhm.
Everybody has a nickname, and he was El Chato, which means like the short one, right? And I got a bunch. I'm Bruja, Loca, Cindy, Esqueleto, all of that kind of stuff. I got a lot, but he's Chato. Everybody calls him Chato. So I don't even call him Tio Enrique. I've always called him Chato. Like,
Mhm.
like Danny, and I'm like Chato. Like that's how it always was. And he was like my grandmother's baby. He wasn't the baby because he's older than my dad, but like my grandma babied the fuck out of her. She era su chatito, right? And they had a very, very special bond. It was really, really beautiful.
Beautiful.
It's interesting to me in my life, the two people who have had that extreme mother son relationship have passed away. My tita and su Pascualito. And you know, now my abuelita Hilda passed away 4 years ago. 4 years later, she took her chatito with her. Their funeral dates are actually very, very close together. And their passing is just a month apart. Yeah, she came back for her chatito, but growing up, we used to pick fun at him all the time. I remember my brothers used to pretend that his head was a magic crystal ball, and we'd be at the dinner table and pretend this is Chato's head. I can see into the future.
Oh my
And
goodness.
he would just sit there and laugh. He thought it was so funny. He was never mean, never strict. It was very rare that you saw him upset, to be honest. But I don't think I ever really saw. I think I've seen him like maybe like I can count it on one hand, maybe twice. But you'd be like, I can see into the future, and you know, and so we would do that. Yeah, we would do that. He was also he, like I said in the beginning, he used to put too much of things. So like his coffee had way too much sugar. So like is this coffee? And he would just be pouring. He's like 10 scoops. And we'd be like, Chato, a ti te gusta el azúcar con café. So we'd be like, you like sugar with coffee, not coffee with sugar. And so he'd always have hella, and we'd be like, dude, you gotta tone it the fuck down, right? And then with his food, he always put way too much chile. Well, not chile, because in Peru es ají. He'd put way too much ají. And we would always be like, you can't even handle it. And so he would always put too much. And because the man was bald, his bald head would start sweating profusely. So he was dripping sweat. His eyes would be watering. He was very, very, very moreno, like very, very dark skinned. Like still like in my tone, you know, of like an indigenous tone, but like a lot darker than me. And whatchamacallit, yeah, no, he would just be like sweating, and he would still get red, like his cheeks would get so red right here. And he'd be all sniffly, and he'd be eating, and it was so funny. And we'd be like Chato pica, like Chato, is it hot? And he'd be like, no. And he'd be like, ah, chucha, which like in Peru, like chucha is just like, ah, shit, right? Like you'd just be like, ah, chucha, all the time. And then we'd be like, chato, pica, and he'd be like, chito, you know, like my grandma, that's my grandma's phrase. She, like, I tattooed it on my arm. And so me and my brother, you know, his son also has tattoos. And when me and my brother got our tattoo, this is the tattoo we have matching tattoos. He has it on this side. He also has the date. This is in remembrance of my grandma passing away. Like we got it because we were like, well, Chato's kid Axel already has a tattoo, so we're good. Let's go get one. But we already. I was telling my brother when he passed, I was like, well, and Chato, I remember when this was finally revealed, in the sense that when my dad finally noticed it, even though I wasn't living at home, I didn't live at home, but my brother lived at home, and my dad didn't notice. They noticed mine. I remember Chato was the one to defend and be like, that's actually really sweet. Like I think that she would have really liked that. As my dad was not having it, he was not happy about it. But Chato thought it was really, really sweet. So I told Gianluca, I was like, well, at least Chato knows at least 3 people are going to get tattoos for him. And he was like, because, you know, we know that Axel is going to get a tattoo. And me and Gianluca already had this understanding, like, we're going to get a tattoo. And I was like, are we going to do matching again, or what are you doing? And Gianluca's going to get, so Chato also, he can't hang. So he would like always like drink with us or whatever, but he would like fall asleep. He fell asleep at the couch at the dinner table so many times. We'd all be talking and he'd be like, I'd be like, hey, Chato, somebody wake up Chato, go send him to his room. Like somebody go wake up Chato, because so Gianluca's gonna get a sleepy bald man with a shirt that says Chato. And I said, what I'm gonna get is I'm gonna get it on this arm. I'm not sure where just yet, maybe like somewhere over here, but I'm going to get a hot sauce bottle of rocoto, and it's gonna say Chato sauce. And so that's what I'm gonna get for Chato.
I love that.
And the last thing is Chato really taught me how to be a person who gives without expecting anything in return. He really, really reinforced that. He was like the fixer-upper person in our home. Whenever something was wrong, he helped it. He was also the person he was the person to teach me how to break break into windows because I locked myself in this room. Actually, why is this room so significant? I was destined to live in this room. I locked me and my brother in this room once on accident. The lock stopped working, and he taught me how to take apart my window. And he used to always change our oils for us. So like if we had car problems, we've had some carcanchas because like we didn't have need for anybody because he would fix it. And so he would fix our cars, and he always helped me change my oil, and we always wanted to give him money. Sometimes he would accept it, but most of the time he would be like, no, like, para eso es la familia. That's what family's for. Right. And I remember he was constantly me. I'm always trying to be this. I am an independent woman, but I'm always like trying to be this ultimate independent woman. Like I don't rely on nobody. I could do everything by myself. I've always been that kind of person. My dad's always been pretty proud of that. And Chato has always been very, very proud of that. So whenever I wanted to learn something, he would like teach me. And I was like, I want to learn how to change my oil. I don't just want you to do it. I want to be able to do it myself. But ADHD, I can't ever remember. I always forgot. I even wrote notes and I lost those notes. We did it like maybe 4 or 5 times and I just could not remember. And it was pretty funny. And the last time we changed my oil before, I don't have a car anymore, but before I got not have my car, he said, next time, Dani, you're going to do it and I'm going to watch. I think you got it now. There is no next time. That's one thing that makes me a little sad. There is no next time. But now I'm going to learn on my own all of these things. And I know that he's going to guide me through it. And I felt his energy in this house. It's been a while since I felt it, to be honest. But that first week he was here. He was here. I saw him sitting at the table. I heard him. I felt him all around. And yeah, so we're going to miss him dearly. His absence is 100% felt. He was such a central person in our lives, in our family. He was an extension, like, and we're going to miss him dearly. And there are definitely some changes in this home, and we're going to have to deal with those and face those. And we're going to get through it because we're going to do it together. One thing I do like is that we've all kind of softened to each other. I think this time my family is handling my mental health problems a little bit better, because I did tell them that I got my prescription updated for candy. I didn't directly say I'm depressed again. I mean, I kind of have, but to not worry anyone, because I know some people have been worried. I'm not feeling suicidal. I don't think that darkness could take me again. When I tell you the way that I worked through that in the winter was really quite healing. I don't think that darkness could take me if it tried to. But I am sad, obviously, with all given reason, but it's going to be okay. And with that, there is an update. I'm not sure how temporary it's going to be, but for now, podcasts will only be releasing twice a month. Yeah. So this is going to be the first one. It'll be since this one's going to be the first of the month and we're going to do it every other week, it seems like we're going to do the first and the third Thursday of the month. That's when you're going to get our podcast. You guys know we do a little bit more of a long form anyway, so it'd be a nice way for y'all to catch up and all that good stuff. We're still going to be posting on the WAF Instagram. I want to thank you, babe, for being so understanding and patient with all this. I know that you understand, but it's still like, I really appreciate being able to step away. And have that break. And I know that if I need to again, that I can have that break. And I want to thank you guys for all the love that I've received and the support, and for the birthday wishes as well. Thank you. We'll talk about that I still do want to do that podcast. That was a fun idea that I had. So we'll probably do that at some point, but yeah, I think that's kind of it for me.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thank you guys for tuning in to Chais and Chisme. And you came, what is it? I had it figured out last one, but this one I'm too scatterbrained for it. You came for the chai, but stay for the chisme. All right, there we go. Chais are completely empty, as you can see, completely empty. And thank you guys. So definitely keep up with us on our YouTube, Anchor, wherever else that you get this podcast. And then you heard it here from Daniela. We will be, the frequency will change a bit, but exciting things, exciting things will always be in store. So yeah.
All right, guys. Yes, make sure you like, share, subscribe. Sorry, I'm being great. Like, it feels so weird to be this Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Subscribe so that you get notifications on our podcast. Follow our Instagrams. Again, the GoFundMe will be linked down below. Really, really appreciate any donation. Really, honestly, no donation is too small. No donation is too small. Everything counts. We really, really, really appreciate it. And with that, I hope that you guys have a wonderful day, a wonderful weekend. Ciao.
Salud.
Bye.
Bye.